I'm very excited to be here today to introduce this topic. I grew up a huge sports fanatic. I played 5 sports in high school and played soccer for much of my adult life. I also do triathlons and enjoy running and cycling. And when my son was born, I imagined that we would be attending all kinds of sporting events, from Little League baseball to soccer tournaments, to swim meets, to basketball games. However, my son was born with profound autism and many motor planning challenges. Despite this, he's quite athletic. He can run faster than most people I know, and he can dribble a ball almost as good as Steph Curry. His balance is beyond incredible, and his endurance is enviable. But it wasn't easy finding a sports program that could accommodate my son, who is nonverbal and has severe ADHD. In fact, it was pretty much impossible, with the exception of a gymnastics and movement program called Sensation Nation that he participated in from the age of 8 to 14. And that's why I'm so excited to be here today to introduce today's panel. We will start the conversation featuring 2 students from the Pittsburgh School District, 2 unified athletes, one with an intellectual disability and one without. Allow me to introduce Marley Alcantara and Jonathan Perez. They will be in conversation with Eric Wilfrid, Chair of Special Olympics, Northern California. Eric, I turn to you.
Thank you, Marimo. I think it's on now. Thank you, Marimo. I'm Eric Wilfrid. I am a board member, also a coach, parent of an athlete, and a unified partner with Special Olympics. Special Olympics is a global movement. It's in essentially every country in the world. It's millions of athletes, serves people with intellectual disability. Today's focus, though, is the biggest thing that we're doing in youth sports here in the United States, which is our Unified Champion Schools program, where we partner with about 10,000 schools around the country. And Pittsburgh, California High School is one of the great examples of that. That is a unified champion school that does unified sports competition, unified youth leadership, and whole school activation around unified sports. And Marley and Jonathan are teammates in basketball from Pittsburgh. I thought we'd start off today with just learning a little bit more about them. So Jonathan, can you tell me a little bit about sports in your life? What sports do you play?
Well,
You're good.
Okay. I first joined MP Unified around 2022, and then I first played on the soccer team back then, and I practiced about how to dribble. Oh wait, not dribble. I mean, like how to kick the ball, and even how to learn how to be a goalie.
Nice. I know being a goalie is one of your favorite parts, and so you get soccer. I already said basketball. What other sports do you play right now?
Track.
Mm-hmm. Track. Nice. And I remember there was one more, right?
Yeah, bowling.
Bowling. Got it. So a 4-sport athlete right here. And before you did Unified in high school, had you participated in youth sports before?
Now that I think of it, No.
No. Yeah, that's what I remember, right? So this is a big part of your life in the 3 years you've been in high school now.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, Marley. So what sports do you play, both unified and otherwise?
Unified sports, I play only basketball, but then also I play quarterback at Pittsburgh High School.
Got it. And you play quarterback. You've been pretty successful at that as well. I hear you're going to continue to play quarterback next year?
Yes, I'm committed to Southern Oregon on full scholarship to play quarterback.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah. Thank you.
Congrats. Very exciting for you. So talk to me a little bit about basketball. You guys are teammates. and I know that teammate relationship extends off the field. What's it like for you guys to see each other in the hallway or to see somebody else from your team?
It's amazing, like seeing everybody, all the participants at Unified Sports, all the energy that they bring every single day. They're always happy to see each other, happy to see me. I'm happy to see them too. And it's just like we're best buds, you know. It's great seeing them in the hallway, seeing them outside of school too, so yeah.
How about for you, Jonathan? What's it like to see Marley in the hallway?
Oh, it was simple. We just like,
Oh, can I help you with that? Sure. There you go.
thank you.
Okay.
We always see each other. We always like say what's up and give each other like a high five or probably a fist bump. That's how friends are for.
Nice. Yeah, nice friendships that come out of being teammates. And how about on the court? Like, what's it like being a teammate with Marley and some of the other athletes who participate in Unified?
It made me like feel like a bit of confidence.
Mm-hmm.
And I did like.
I think it's still working. Just keep going. We'll let you
Okay.
know.
I always like practice with them like how to shoot the basketball to the hoop, like by like hitting the white square once the hoop almost once stood.
Nice. Yeah, so you built a lot of skills learning from your teammates. And I hear that you had a really good game against Antioch, your rival, right?
Yeah.
How many points do you score?
20.
20 points. All right.
20 points.
So it's friendship and it's skills, and from not playing sports at all to 20 points by junior year. How about you, Marley? You've been on teams that are varsity teams, super competitive. I know you went to states as well,
yes.
And you've been on unified teams. How are those two experiences, similar or different?
I think we all have the same goal, like on both teams is to win, obviously. But then also like it's very intense being on a varsity team, and you kind of like lose like why we play the game. And it's unified shows me like it's all about having fun, all about like having fun with the people around you, and then also like playing the sport, and also winning. Winning is fun too. So yeah.
Got it. Nice. And about your coaches? Yeah, I know we've got two of them in the audience here. So no pressure. But what's it like working with coaches in unified sport versus coaches in a varsity sport? And what would you say to somebody who's thinking about coaching unified?
Oh, it's amazing. I think playing for them, they give you like, they put you in the right position, but it's also they trust you to do what you're supposed to do. Be responsible with the kids and all that. But it's just a great opportunity to be with great human beings. So yeah. Nice,
cool. All right, and Jonathan, I know you also do track as one of your sports.
Yes.
And you got to go to the track meet, which I know is one of your favorite. What was that like to get to go to a track meet?
Well, I could see like some of my friends that are joining the track team. Like, I even like do the hundreds with them, and then even do some long jumps, and even like we do like the shot put.
Nice. Do you have a favorite track and field event?
Oh yeah,
What's that?
the long jump.
Long jump, right. Yeah, I know you like laying it in the sand, right? Yeah. I know track is special because that's, in basketball competition, it's just unified, playing against other sports. In track, we partnered with CIF, the governing body of high school sports in California. So that's actually part of the regular regional track meet. There'll be a unified division, before a varsity division and a JV division as well. So, excellent. All right, let's see. How do we wrap this up? that you guys told me so many good stories. I'm trying to remember the best one. Marley, what was your favorite story that we talked about before that we didn't get talked about yet?
Beating Antioch, for sure. Especially the crosstown rivalry between Pittsburgh and Antioch goes way back, like 100 years. Mm-hmm. And then I'm undefeated against them in football. I've never lost to them. And then losing to them in unified basketball for the first time, that got me going. So I was like, we definitely gotta like 40 pop these guys like the next time we play. And that's exactly what we did for our last game. So, and John, that's when he had 20 points. So I think that was a great experience seeing John have 20 points against the team I do not like the most.
Rivalries drive us.
Yeah.
Jonathan, I was going to ask you about that. Part of what Unified Champion Schools do is whole school activation. So, it's not just you guys playing basketball on an empty court. Like a lot of the school comes out and cheers you on. What does that feel like to have your friends and your teachers in the stand cheering you on?
I feel like I'm like most proud to see if they cheer me on, to see if I could like make more baskets and such.
Nice. That's you out there representing Pitt with your team. Got to beat Antioch.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, thank you guys so much. Really appreciate you coming out here today and sharing your stories. I know that you're going to be around when we do the table talk part and a little bit afterwards as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Well, it's wonderful to see the impact that the Unified program can have, not just on somebody with a disability, but also on his partner. Youth with disabilities often face the greatest barriers to sports participation. And today, we're going to unpack the challenges for the populations falling into this category with an eye towards solutions that can be scaled. Now, please allow me to introduce our panel here to help us understand how to design for the hardest to reach. David Greig, co-founder and development director of ParaSports Spokane. Danny Openden, CEO of Southwest Autism Research and Resource Center. Emily Seelenfreund, Executive Director of Bay Area Outreach and Education Program, or BORP. Eric Wilfrid, Chair of Special Olympics Northern California. And last but not least, our moderator, Dawna Callahan, CEO and founder of All-In Sport Consulting. Dawna, I'll let you take it away.
Hi, everyone. Such a great group here today. Thank you so much for coming, and appreciate Project Play for inviting me to moderate this session today. So just to give you a little bit of background on me, and then we'll introduce the panelists. Dawna Callahan. Oh, it's not working.
He's got one for you.
Yeah, I touched it.
No worries. Let's give that one a shot.
All right. Good? Okay. CEO and founder of All-In Sport Consulting. But as far as background, I grew up about 30 minutes south without traffic in Fremont, California. And that was a long time ago. That was in the 70s. I know, I'm aging myself. But at 3 years old, I got transverse myelitis that resulted in incomplete paralysis, i.e. wheelchair user. I grew up in a family that was very active in sport and recreation and the outdoors. My dad was a high school coach, athletic director, and retired as principal at the same school that my brother and I also attended, so that was a little rough at times. But my dad always advocated, because of our family and the upbringing, of being active. So he always advocated for my participation in sport and recreation. He started a swim program for kids with disabilities in the 70s. He would open up the high school pool for the Red Cross swim lessons every summer. And he started to ask around, why aren't there kids like my kids on the pool deck? Why are they not in the pool? Lo and behold, a swim program soon started for kids with disabilities in the community. I always did the president's physical fitness test. My dad would tell them, here's all the things she can do. And I have a sweatshirt somewhere in my parents' basement that has all my patches from my president's physical fitness tests. I always did regular PE. And his cycling club, his cycling club built my first hand cycle. My dad passed away last week. So today I'm rallying for him. I'm rallying for him, trying to put my best game face on, doing the best I can to honor him and his legacy. And that was 50 years ago, and we still have challenges today as to why kids are not involved in sport and recreation. And there weren't rules, there weren't laws, there weren't regulations. There was nothing. He just did it because he knew that that's what I wanted to do. And I wanted to be a part of the family, and I always wanted to be involved and included. And today, we still want to get kids involved and included, and we don't understand why it's still taking so long. But I'm here today to honor my dad and his legacy, and appreciate you guys listening, and hopefully our goal today is to come away with one or two things that you can take back to your community so that kids can be included and not excluded. Brene Brown, the famous social psychologist who's on the New York Post or the New York Times bestseller list all the time, noted in one of her books, Atlas of the Heart, on an HBO special, that when people are excluded, the same pain sensors that activate when you're hurt or injured, stub your toe, are the same pain sensors that activate when you're excluded. So I want to make sure we take information back to our families and our communities and our school districts and our Parks and Rec districts today to say it's time to stop excluding these kids. And when we talk about history of 50 years of this community, there's no other more appropriate place for this session to take place than Berkeley. Many of you may not realize that Berkeley is the home of the disability civil rights movement. So there's some real badass disabled advocates in this community, so watch out for them. So many of the leaders that, went up and down these streets here in Berkeley were instrumental in getting the ADA passed almost 35 years ago. So hats off to Berkeley and for Project Play for having this particular session, the first of its kind at Project Play. I'd also like to note, I want to ask, how many of you currently work with athletes or participants with disabilities? Next time we host a session like this, bring a buddy. Because I don't want to preach to the choir, right? We got to bring in friends and colleagues and peers that aren't a part of this community. So next time we have a session like this, please bring peers so we can spread the word, right? That's what the gospel's all about. We got to spread the word. So again, our goal today is to take away one or two things into your community to create more access and opportunity for kids with disabilities. We have an incredible, really awesome panel here today, and I'll let them take it away, and you guys can introduce yourselves. I'll start with Danny. Yeah.
My name is Danny Openden. I'm the president and CEO of the Southwest Autism Research and Resource Center called SARC in Phoenix, Arizona. And I'm also a kids coach. And a big piece for me, one of my first jobs in autism was as a one-on-one aide for a 7-year-old girl with autism in a general education second grade classroom. And my job was to transfer independence to her and control to her teacher. I used to tell people that my job was to lose my job. And at the end of the school year, that's exactly what happened, as I spent the entire day sitting in the back of the room reading a book because we had accomplished and achieved those goals. And that inspired my focus around getting kids with autism around their typically developing peers, whether that's at schools, whether that's recreationally, whether that's in sports. And so our organization focuses a lot on integrating kids with autism in existing community activities with typical kids where we can. And I do that both professionally and then personally. I seem to always be the coach that's got kids with disabilities on my team.
Nice. I'm Eric Wilfrid again. So board member, coach, unified partner. That means I get to play football on Sundays. I get a little bit of the unified experience that these guys get, but not at a school. For Special Olympics Northern California. Let's see. I think your origin story. I got into Special Olympics because I hired an athlete. Will, I knew he had autism. And my son Colin has autism, and so I was kind of thinking of Colin's future. I was at Microsoft at the time. And I said, yes, please, let's do a little pilot program in my group. Well, all Will wanted to talk about, Will's still at Microsoft 13 years later, by the way, all he wanted to talk about in the break room was Special Olympics. And I had no idea. I had no idea about competition. I had no idea about being a teammate. I didn't yet have any idea about Unified. So fast forward a bunch of years, Mike Colin and his teacher, Mr. Velshow, started Unified at Woodside High School, which meant that we had to have it at Sequoia and Hillsdale and Menlo Atherton and all the rivals, just like Antioch and Pittsburgh. The movement has hooked me ever since. So a little bit of statistics. Special Olympics is in about 10,000 schools in the United States, including about 600 in Northern California, of whom almost 300 are like Pitt, executing on all three components of unified sports, unified leadership, and whole school activation.
Thank you so much. My name is Emily Seelenfreund. I'm the executive director of an organization that's based right here in Berkeley called BORP, Adaptive Sports and Recreation. And I, in addition to running BORP, I've been involved in adaptive sports pretty much since I was 5 years old. I was born with a disability, and when I was about 4, someone came up to my mom at the doctor's office and she said, you know, have you heard about adaptive sports? There's a track program really nearby. And at that time, my parents were like overwhelmed. They were like, we have, physical therapy 5 times a week. I don't think we can manage another thing. And then about a year passed, and I'm not sure if it was the same family or a different family, but, someone else came up to us and they said, have you thought about her doing adaptive sports? And this time they said, okay, maybe we should try it. And I think what they quickly realized, and what I realized, was that that became physical therapy. That was a heck of a lot more fun than doing like leg raises on a table for 45 minutes. Adaptive sports has just had a tremendous impact on my life personally. So I started with track, and I quickly really grew to find wheelchair basketball, which has been a real passion of mine. And I played all through high school, and then I played in college at the University of Alabama. And I've tried a whole bunch of different adaptive sports over the years, and it's taken me a lot of places, but really it's the soft skills that I've learned, kind of the confidence to be up here right now speaking to you, the passion to lead an organization like BORP. And so, yeah, I just kind of really recognize how these programs really impact people both on and off the playing field. And just a quick fun fact about BORP. So BORP was founded in 1976, and it was actually founded right here, or very close to here, by a UC Berkeley student. Her name was Susan Siegel, and she was a wheelchair user, and she just tried to sign up for her university's for a swim class at the University of Berkeley, which, swimming can be a class. And it's kind of hard to imagine, but, back in 1976, she was denied access to that swim class because she was a wheelchair user. And, like that trailblazing spirit that Berkeley was known for at that time, she said, well, if, they're not gonna let me join this swim class, I'm gonna make my own. And the demand grew so quickly that what started out, the name was Berkeley Outreach and Recreation Program. They had to change it 2 years later to Bay Area Outreach and Recreation Program because people were just coming from all over the region. They were so desperate for these kinds of opportunities.
Awesome. Can see people over here. All right. Yeah, it's a great honor to be up here with this group. My name's David Greig. My Paralympic, parasport journey started in 1999. I was a junior in college. and an athlete showed up and asked me if I wanted to coach. He was a wheelchair user. I was a hurdler. Did not compute with me the first time he said it, and but I took a shot, and you know, next thing I realized there was this Paralympic movement that was going on. I was an Olympic nut. I'm more of a Paralympic nut now than an Olympic nut, and I realized there was this whole movement that was going on parallel to the Olympic movement at that time. I'm born in Canada. I was residing in Canada, and nobody knew the history of the sports. Generally, there were no coach education resources. There's very few people that could actually answer questions that I had as a young sport management student, as a young coach. So I dedicated kind of my career work at that point to developing those materials, developing those pipelines, and being the source of answers for people's questions. In 2014, I moved to the U.S. to Spokane, Washington, and we founded ParaSports Spokane, which is our not-for-profit, which we run. We have about 200 families we impact in Spokane, Washington. Athletes as young as 2 years old. I use the term athlete lightly at that age, but showing up. But then they're participating in sports or being led by Paralympians, and their family members are seeing this. They're seeing Paralympians or board members or people who have law degrees or people who are getting doctorates who are wheelchair users or have cerebral palsy or have vision impairments that are similar to their children, and they're seeing hope. They're seeing future, and what we do is we build community at ParaSports Spokane. We have 6 sports, and we've just started with our own facility in Spokane, Washington, with a partnership through East Valley School District, and we're really excited for the future to come. And kind of a fact that we share a lot is probably 78% of the members that we have did not come willingly the first time, the second time, the third time, the fourth time, kicking and screaming, quite literally. Children coming in the door with their eyes red, but also red when they're going to leave because they don't want to leave because they've had such an amazing experience. So I think it's important to share that. I know when I saw the title for this session, the hardest to reach, being inside looking out right now, it's why is it so hard? It isn't. You know, Special Olympics is in thousands of schools. There are athletes with physical disabilities in those schools as well too that can be integrated easily. And it just takes an open mind. So, thank you.
Thank you all. Do you want to scoot down a little bit so David's not behind the podium and I don't fall off the stage?
Oh, good. Yeah, don't fall off.
Yeah, we don't fall off the stage. Is that better? A little better over there? Okay,
we're close.
Awesome. I feel very close to all of you. So a couple, all of them talked about kids who are involved in sport, but we know there's a lot of kids who aren't involved in sport. And I'll start off with some statistics on what this looks like in the U.S. and know that there's 2 Paralympic Games coming to our country in 10 years. So the clock is ticking to identify our next roll of athletes that will be competing in LA 28 and then Salt Lake City in 2034. So my hope is that with that, we will start to talk about disability more in our communities and in our society as a result of the Paralympic Games coming. But right now, this is what it looks like. 4 in 10 individuals with disabilities that do not play sports want to play sports. That's 40%. 3 million children in the US have a disability. Physical activity levels are 4.5 times lower for youth with a disability, and the obesity rate is 38% higher for children with disabilities. And 1.5 million students in public, primary, and secondary schools with a physical impairment are excluded from having access to opportunities in athletics and sport. So we gotta get busy. We're gonna get busy. So let's start off with some questions for this panel. And please, if you have a question, just raise your hand, and Skylar from Project Play can bring the mic around. I don't want you to have to wait for the next half an hour or so to get a question answered. If something comes up in the panel, please just raise your hand and I'll do my best to get Skylar over to you. So we talk about, David, I'll start with you. You're not always going to be first, Danny. So David, you talked about the hardest to reach. What are some challenges or barriers at ParaSports Spokane behind the scenes before you even get a child to your program? We know they're kicking and screaming when they come in the door. We've learned that. But what are some challenges that you have there in Spokane that create barriers for children with disabilities? And when I say disabilities today, just know that we're talking the wide swath. And if you want to mention, I mean, disability is such a diverse community in and of itself. Just know that I'm kind of being general here as we talk about disability.
I could go on for hours.
I know you.
Yeah, and we have, Dawna.
I know we have.
I think Emily talked to it a little bit. It took her a year for her family to realize how, well, just even that it was potential to go, right? People don't see it on television. They are now more than ever, but in this nation, a lot less than others around the world, unfortunately. If you're social media savvy, people are getting a lot more information about parasport, the Paralympic movement, but you're seeing a Blade Runner, you're seeing someone in a wheelchair racing chair, or seeing Brian Bell play some ridiculous basketball in his basketball chair. You know, the connect of that equipment that I use is different than my everyday chair. That equipment that I use is different than my daily running prosthesis. So there's a medical intervention at some point, or a specialist that has to kind of make that connection through equipment typically. Does the prosthetist know how to set up a running blade, let alone a performance running blade? Is it a jogging blade versus a sprinting blade? Is that the best fit for the individual? A lot of people, teachers included, make a lot of decisions for individuals with disabilities. We hear from a lot of folks in the community, well, I think this athlete will be good for this sport. Well, I don't care what you think. What does the athlete and the individual think? Let's give that choice to the individual with a disability to come out and experiment, to sample sports. We do it on the able-bodied side all the time, sampling sports. So it's important for people to understand those words matter, and that why are they not? We should be flush with individuals from rehab hospitals, flush with individuals from special education departments, just trying the sports. It would be nice to be overrun with members, wouldn't it, Emily? Yeah.
And Emily, for BORP, Bay Area, I mean, I know you mentioned you have folks coming from Sacramento and Tracy. Luckily, I grew up around here, so I know all these places. But as far south as probably Morgan Hill, San Jose. How do we manage getting folks to and from programs that may have some challenges already with transportation? How does that work in the Bay Area? What are some creative solutions you've come up with?
Yeah, that's a good question. And yeah, when I started out, I kind of talked about, the difficulties that I had kind of starting sports, but I didn't talk about the enormous privilege that I had as well, which is that when I finally convinced my mom to let me try basketball, she was worried that it was a little rough. I was 11, had a great year on the team, and then it was a group of, there was varsity and like a younger league, like in kind of standard stand-up basketball. And all of those kids graduated. And so my mom took it upon herself to kind of start a new nonprofit, basically get the paperwork so that I could keep playing. My parents purchased me a $4,000 wheelchair. They drove me to practice 45 minutes once a week so that I could, because the practice wasn't at my school and there was no busing home. And, there's just a tremendous amount of privilege that comes with these sports. And I think it's important to acknowledge that kind of, oftentimes when you look at the people who are participating in adaptive sports, it's generally folks who are wealthier and whiter than the typical disability community, which is obviously as diverse as any community. And there's no easy or pat answer. BORP is really fortunate that we have 2 wheelchair accessible buses and are able to provide transportation to some programs, which is really great and does definitely lessen that barrier, but it doesn't eliminate it totally. I don't want to say that it eliminates it totally. One thing that we are able to do is store equipment. We do have a closet space at our basketball practice facility, at our power soccer facility, we rent that facility. We don't yet have our own facility, although that is a dream. If anyone knows of an empty lot in the Bay Area,
it doesn't cost a bazillion dollars.
Talk to me after. And so we're able to kind of make it a little easier. So instead of having to transport 2 wheelchairs, you only have to transport 1 wheelchair. But this is definitely something that we grapple with each and every week.
and Eric. You've talked about Pittsburgh, Antioch, the other side of the bay. How do we, what are some challenges and barriers that your athletes face in being involved in sport?
The beautiful part about Unified Champions schools is that it's just part of the school day. That takes a lot of work, and there are barriers. Mr. Fox over here from Pittsburgh is the barrier breaker, and he has a counterpart in essentially every other district that embraces that embraces Unified. For the athletes and partners, though, it's just another thing that you can do as an elective as part of school. And that's a beautiful thing. I would pass that on to any other organization. If there's a great way to partner with schools and make it part of the school day or part of the after school, that's an enormous advantage in breaking down those barriers. At Special Olympics, we also do community sports starting at age 8. And there, I think there are some barriers that are pretty similar to what you were thinking of. Not so much the prosthetist, but the parent and the emotional readiness and the support needs of the athlete. Are often a barrier, or the perceived support needs of an athlete. Like, is my kid actually going to be okay here with a coach? Do they actually know what they're doing? Is the level of athletic competition appropriate? What happens if they have a meltdown? Like, there are actually good answers to all of those things, but I think we have more to do in focusing on that whole athlete experience, not just what happens when you show up, and are you greeted, and are you welcomed, and are you placed in an appropriate team and coach partnership, but can you figure that out on the website, that it's going to be okay, or that this site may actually be a better match than that one? And just thinking through that holistic experience with all of those barriers that apply to people with disabilities is critical.
Danny. Last but not least.
I think the biggest barrier that we face specific to autism is just the number of choices and opportunities that exist in our communities. And I think the biggest reason for that is that many of our families think first and foremost, well, I've got to go find something that's autism only or disability specific for my child to participate in. And to me, you're missing out on a whole bunch of other opportunities. We tell people all the time, we live in Phoenix and we have an incredible community of lots of different ways to get involved. And rather than us creating something separate, why can't we work within our existing communities to make them more inclusive of people with autism in their programs? And at SARC, this is a big focus for us in general. I mean, we often say that we are as committed to improving the behaviors and skills of people with autism as we are to improving the behaviors and the skills of the communities in which they live. And in 2016, Phoenix, there was a 2-part segment on Phoenix and on our organization, and they looked around at all the places we had touched the community and called Phoenix the most autism-friendly city in the world. And we're super proud of this, but a big piece of that is not looking at it as people with disabilities have to be separated from everybody else. It's looking at it and going, we have a great community, we have great existing resources, we have great existing community programs. How do we work with and partner with those programs to integrate our kids into those already great programs?
Oh, sorry, thank you.
Hey, my name is Joshua. I run Amputee Blade Runners. This was the session that I had circled at the very outset as the one I really wanted to come to. But while you're talking about barriers, we were in this room yesterday and talked about cost, and the info said there that it was about $1,000 spent on the primary sport and another $500 spent on secondary sports for everyone. Could you speak to that within this community?
Yeah, David, Emily, you probably are with the specialized Paralympic type equipment, basketball chairs, tennis chairs.
Emily talked about it, how much her family spent, right? And that's a huge burden, especially when you come into a program and you've had all these other needs to purchase, whether insurance has covered it or not, and then to be asked, you have to rent a chair or you have to go buy a specialized chair. We have 72 basketball chairs as part of our program, thanks to a number of granting organizations over the years. We have our athletes sign a contract when they get a new chair to donate the chair back to our program because they have borrowed a chair to start with. So that's an important piece of it. There are a number of granting agencies out there, ABRs being a great one, to support athletes who have the hopes to run with a prosthetic limb. That area, that burden is so high in the Paralympic world. We actually had a parent, we were at a high school meet and there was the para division there, and We had a parent, we talked to her about becoming a thrower, to throw javelin. She was ambulatory. She didn't even need a prosthesis. And her mom went home and Googled how much it cost to make the Paralympic Games, and she has never showed up since, because there's a stat online that says $80,000 to make a Paralympic Games, apparently. And so that's just unreal, and why she wouldn't listen to the local experts about that. And the burden of cost is just a massive one. We at ParaSports Spokane have a very different philosophy than a lot of other programs. We do not charge a membership fee. When our athletes go to travel, we tell them what the full cost is of an event, what the 1/3 cost is, but if they can't pay, don't worry about it. We'll take care of it. But also they're gonna help us fundraise, be out in the community, because we're teaching them to be leaders, we're teaching them to advocate, and we're teaching them to stand up and talk about not only their disability, but just what their community is and what our community means to them and the impact it's having on them.
And Emily at BORP?
Yeah, I echo everything you said. And I talked a bit about the cost of a basketball chair. And I want to make sure that folks don't leave this session thinking that the only adaptive sports that exist are wheelchair basketball. Because I have to be aware of that, because that's kind of my background. And that is often the face of the disability sports movement. Does anyone here know what power soccer is? I didn't know what it was until I started working at BORP. It is very cool, and if you don't know what it is, definitely go watch some YouTube videos about it. I have learned from my time at BORP that to be a competitive power soccer player, you must have a strike force chair. That is the chair. It's kind of like, I don't really know what the stand-up equivalent is, because I have never run, but I guess like having Nike shoes or something like that. Those chairs cost $10,000. They cost so much that the Challenge Athletes Foundation, the biggest grantor, doesn't cover the full cost of those chairs. So, again, talking about compounding costs and compounding privilege, particularly for that community, those chairs are really expensive. BORP has a full fleet of power soccer strike force chairs. So when athletes come to our program, they're able to borrow those for as long as they need. And I guess the only other thing, I'd echo everything you said, we also we have a very modest membership fee, $20 a month, with unlimited no questions asked scholarships. And the idea of that is just that if you can support our programs, please support our programs to help make it possible, so that, for those who can't, that they can participate. And then the only other thing I'd add that we didn't touch on yet is just the travel cost as well, because we talked about the equipment, but if you want to play a power soccer team or a wheelchair rugby team, it's not going to be like, you're not going to be able to necessarily go over, from Antioch to Pittsburgh or anything like that. You're going to have to most likely get on a plane. And so, just the kind of the travel costs. And so we do what we can to kind of subsidize those costs. There are a lot of travel grants out there, and we do what we can to make folks aware of them as well, but the costs are real.
Eric?
Special Olympics is always free to participants. That's in schools and in community sports, and schools partnerships come with funding. About half of that funding is from the U.S. Department of Education, Office of Special Education. Call your congressperson. And the other half is fundraised locally in state programs. So we don't have the same challenges with very expensive equipment, but that principle of cost should not be one more barrier is something it sounds like we all share the philosophy on.
Danny, do you have anything to add?
I'll just add something very quickly. Similarly, the cost of equipment is not the big barrier for us. It's really the cost of people to provide the support to integrate people into these activities. And one of the things that we've been able to do with that really well, I would say 95% of the clients that we serve at SARC are getting access through their medical health insurance. And we've been able to very creatively write medically necessary goals to allow people to provide support for them to participate in after-school activities, including sports. And so for that, what that means for us is that our therapists are going to soccer practice and basketball practice and t-ball, and they're going to these places paid for by their insurance companies because we've been able to write the goals in such a way that's made that medically necessary.
So we've talked a lot about barriers and challenges. And another question, sorry.
Laurel Kingsbury from Gig Harbor, Washington, a little south of Seattle. I come here to this summit with two hats, or three, but two. First, as an elementary PE teacher in the public school system, and second, as a commissioner of PennMet Parks and Rec, which is the main provider of it, or the only provider of rec sports in our small community area. I want to ask a little bit about the Unified Champion Schools. I didn't know much about it. I was just Googling to learn what I could now. So my question is twofold. When you're in a community or a school district that doesn't know about this or is not connected to it, what could a low-level teacher do to try and try and connect my own school district and others in the area to the program? And also, does Unified Champion Schools or Unified Champion or any organization have similar programs that go into the Parks and Recs programming? And as a Park and Rec provider, how are we able to, other than just piecemealing it together ourselves and meeting people and putting it together, which is what we're doing, how can we connect to really provide these programmings of adaptive sports and all sports to our community?
Excellent, thank you. And I think the general answer is connect with your state program. Special Olympics is a global movement, but the on-the-ground action happens in the states. So I was living in Washington when I got involved. I know the state program there is amazing. So you are in good hands, and I'm happy to connect you directly. But for people who live other places, California is the only state where there's a separate Northern California and Southern California program. Southern California is also excellent. To your other question on Parks and Rec, on the community sports side, outside of schools, Parks and Rec departments are some of our best partners. Just awareness and facilities and integration into the rhythm of the community is, that's a priceless kind of partnership. So I'm sure that Special Olympics Washington would love to connect with you on both sides.
So let's kind of stay on that track as far as who are great partners, allies that folks can reach out to in their local communities to build your program, support your program. What does that look like? Are there unique aspects to that? What does it take so that these folks can go back and say, I'm going to go to Parks and Rec, I'm going to go to the state office? Anyone want to chime in on how do we find our allies to reach out to create programs?
Anyone that's interested. Like really, you got to find a soul that this movement resonates with them and just work them till they're exhausted. No, that's what happens to the rest of us. But you've got to find the individuals and you have to spread the net wide. And everyone within the movement asks, why are you guys so successful with the number of programs you have, the number of athletes you have, the athletes you have going to the Paralympic Games? And there's not one solution to the problem. There's my wife's an occupational therapist. She's been in the community for 30 years. I'd say the one thing that's helped us most is getting referrals from the therapy clinics now, but it's social media because the therapists are sitting there scrolling before they go to bed and they're like, oh, that was so-and-so, they were at my clinic and they're doing this, super cool. Oh, I got another guy that's just like that, let's do that. Partnering with all the service providers. So we have 6 sports at ParaSports Spokane. So we have a local sled hockey program and partner with the local hockey club. The YMCA gives us time at the pool. And then working with school districts. Our newest partnership is with East Valley School District. They happen to have an empty middle school that we're occupying now, but we've since written a grant and now they're going to be busing students for almost a unified type, but with the Paralympic focus. So some leadership skills for some able-bodied students, but learning Paralympic sports. And unfortunately, their school district only has 3,800 students compared to the 28,000 students at Spokane school districts. But it's you work with who is there, who is willing, and who comes back. And I think that's the biggest thing for us.
I have a couple thoughts touching on what you said. So if you're in a school setting, K-12, BORP, and I think there's a lot of other adaptive sports organizations who do this, we do demos in local schools. So we have a fleet of basketball chairs and we'll show up at the school and we'll facilitate so the students can play wheelchair basketball. But kind of building on that, we had a demo set up at a local elementary school, and the day what we were doing was kind of partnering with a gym teacher, and so the class would come in and they would get to play wheelchair basketball. And in the email, she kind of offhandedly said, okay, great. So, half of the class will be doing goalball and half of the class will be doing wheelchair basketball, and we'll switch. And I said, wait. BORP has a goalball team, but I hadn't realized we were going to be facilitating goalball. And I kind of wrote back, and I was a little panicky. And she said, oh, no, I'm going to be facilitating goalball. We have been doing goalball for several months now. And what I came to find out was that she was the gym teacher who kind of made this demo happen. She had been a volunteer at BORP several years ago and had learned about goalball, which is a sport specifically for the blind and low vision community. And she loved it so much that she went to her principal and said, could I do a goalball unit? And the principal said, sure. And the great thing about goalball is that the costs are relatively low. It's a sport in which everybody wears eye shades and the ball is audible. It has a bell in it. And and then there's tape that is tactile. And so that's pretty much all you need to get started. And the great thing is, once you put on the eye shades, everyone is on literally an equal playing field. And so all of a sudden, what's the goal of PE when you're 7, 8, 9, right? The goal is to be active, to be to work as a team, and that a goalball unit accomplishes all of that, right? And so I thought that was just such a clever and creative solution to kind of integrating these activities into schools.
And Dan, go ahead, Eric. I was going to say, you kind of talked about your state partners. And yeah, go ahead.
I think for us, there's two major allies. One is the community partner, whether that's the T-ball league or the basketball program or whatever else it is, that we're partnering with them. And I always tell people, like in schools, we often found that if you could have a really supportive teacher but a not bought-in principal, it's not going to work. And it always starts at the top. So trying to get the people at the top, whether that's the president of the league or the board of directors or whatever, on board that this is what's going to happen in our league, that's incredibly helpful. The other ally is that we've got to partner with other autism providers. So I think it's ridiculous to think that any league is going to have the ability and the training to just get kids with disabilities in their program without the right supports to make that successful. So the other allies is we need to convince more service providers that this actually is important, that kids don't need to just be in a therapy room and a clinic. They need to be out in their communities. They need to be in existing community activities, and we need to be the ones that support the leagues to do it well.
So yes, where people get their other services, I'd tack on the personal connection. Right? With those connections that work best are the day program that has a staff person who coaches, who can say, come with me to Special Olympics, instead of, hey, a lot of your friends are doing Special Olympics. And that makes all the difference. As soon as you can get somebody to show up, it's all of a sudden clear why you might want to stick around.
So I'd like each of you brag about your organization and share with folks a best practice that you're super proud of, so that maybe folks can take it home with them to their community strategy, best practice that's been super successful in your organizations. Let me start with Emily. I'll give you time to think. Do you want to start? Okay. You're looking at me like, oh, you have a lot of best practices, so you have a whole list. So, yeah. Go ahead, Emily.
I think the thing I'll brag about BORP is that we just have, I feel like I've touched on just a small fraction of the programs that we have. We have over 15 programs. We serve over 1,000 individuals with disabilities a year. And my favorite fact is we run over 1,100 programs annually, which means that if you go to our website, borp.org, and look at our calendar, you'll see that there's 3, 4, 5 things happening every single day, which I think is really awesome. And I think we serve the full gamut. Like, I think there's a lot of organizations, which is great, which are focused on creating the next generation of Paralympians, which is awesome. Like, the Paralympics is super cool, but just like not everyone is going to be Olympian, not everyone is going to be a Paralympian, right? Not every adaptive athlete is going to get to that level, but the benefits kind of transcend that, right? They're numerous, and I don't have to kind of preach to the choir here. So I think BORP really has a recreational aspect to it, right? And so I think we really focus on meeting people at whatever fitness level they're at. Whether if that's they want to go on like a very casual adaptive cycle ride. We have at Aquatic Park in Berkeley, one of the largest collections of adaptive cycles in the world. Or all the way up to people who want to participate at a very high level. That was my, and I don't know, what was the second part? Something
just best practice, stuff that you're proud of, strategies that.
Oh, okay.
You good?
Yeah, I guess that really touches on it. And I guess my other favorite thing would be that, if you can, involve people with disabilities in your programs. My second favorite BORP fact is that over 50% of our staff and our board, and I would say close to 100% of our coaches are people with disabilities themselves at every level of the organization, from the executive director to the president of our board. At every single level, people with disabilities, when they run these programs, it's not just something that looks good, it's something that makes the programs more successful, because people with disabilities know how to run programs, and then also they serve as role models for the athletes who kind of get to see themselves in our leadership.
Yeah, thank you, Emily. Representation is key. Eric?
Absolutely. We also have 3 athletes on our board, and wouldn't do anything without them. I think one of the best practices I'm most proud of is the holistic approach to the athlete. It's sports is always the core, but in the schools program we have unified leadership. We have whole school engagement. In the community program, we have a big emphasis on healthy athletes. There are great health disparities for people with intellectual disabilities. And so it's not just sports, but thinking about how sports fits into somebody's whole life and opening up all of those opportunities.
Danny?
Well, one of them I already touched on, and that is we have to provide support for this to work and to be successful. But I'll give you 2 others. One is you have to start to look at the possibility of what can actually happen as opposed to what's limiting about the disability to begin with. So one of my first clients, I remember he was really young. He was now like 3 or 4 years old, and the dad came out and said, when he turns 5, we agreed he's playing t-ball. And that was going to happen. And him and his wife argued about it a little bit, and they said, no, we said when we had a boy, he's playing t-ball at 5 years old. And I love the mentality that we were going to find a way for him to play t-ball. And that was important to them. Now, his t-ball career went nowhere. But he did end up swimming all through high school, swam all through college, and graduated as the captain of his swim team. And I think it started with, yes, he can, and we can figure out a way to make this happen. The second comes not from my organization, but more from me personally as a coach, and that is with any team that I coach, kids with disabilities or not, and again, I tend to end up on my teams, we create a culture around support right from the start without singling out the person with a disability. So in every one of my teams, we have 3 rules. It's listen the first time, it's give your best effort and attitude, and support your team. And that's it. Those are our only rules. But that support your team piece at the end is for every kid on there without singling anybody out. We expect people, when a kid makes an error, for the kids to say, that's all right, put your head up, let's go, whether they have a disability or not. And last year we coached a kid with autism on my team. And because in autism, a lot of times people will get real perseverative and stuck on these things, he took support your team to a whole other level. And we had a kid that hit not 1, but 2 home runs against us in the same game. And when the kid with autism got on first base and the kid was playing first base, he looked at me and goes, hey man, great home runs today, way to go. And I was like, he's on the other team, but he didn't get the idea. The idea was we were supportive, and I think it works for the other kids, it works for the kids with autism as well.
And David.
All right. I've got 3. All right, I've got 3 things. The first one is, and I know Dawna will call me out if I don't mention this, we have a thing called, and Eric talked about it earlier, kind of that proclivity for parents to kind of hang out and to build that trust. And we have a term called a parentectomy at ParaSports Spokane, where we will physically step in front of the parent, and one of our other staff will swoop in behind and start talking to the parent, introduce them to another parent in the room, and then we will take the child and we will introduce them to an athlete, we'll get them in the appropriate equipment, and off they go. The separation has happened. So that is kind of a term that we've coined. It can make for an interesting thing, right? The other thing is we're creating community. And people ask why we do this. Because we have to, because no one else is doing it. It's not in the schools. Some of the Parks and Rec districts are doing it. Generally, a lot of people with physical disabilities will exclude themselves from special needs programs. And that's just fact. It's not something they want to take part of. So we're missing out on that population and activity. But on the inverse side, a lot of people who are high functioning with physical disabilities hide because they don't want other people to know they have a disability. So creating that community where there's confidence that's grown, where there's positive role modeling and great mentorship, not just for the kids, but for their family members and the whole orbit around them. They start coming to school talking about, hey, I'm a para-track athlete, I'm a wheelchair basketball player. It changes that language around them, changes those conversations around the people around them. And the last thing is we use sport as a catalyst for life. That's our mission statement at ParaSports Spokane. So it makes for a lot of hard conversations behind the scenes with coaches, calling out coaches who let an athlete sit on the bench because they wanted to win that game versus the athlete actually getting playing time in that game. Really having those hard discussions with parents about independence. Our team travels as a team. When they go to tournaments, the parents can choose to travel with the team. They can drive behind the bus or they can buy a ticket on the same flight, but we travel just like any other able-bodied kids team or a collegiate team because we're training them to be independent as they grow. We'll have kids as young as 7 flying with their teammates and rooming with their teammates. It's trust. It's a lot of trust building, but having good role models who've been through it before, who've gone off to play collegiate basketball, who are Paralympians, who are the best in the world at what they do, are doctors, I said it before, lawyers. Showing proof modeling that to the parents, it builds hope, but it also builds trust in your program. So that's something we're very proud of.
So I know we don't have a lot of time, but I really would love for all of y'all to kind of come together as a table. So if you have 2 people at a table or you're by yourself, if you could come together as a table and maybe we spend 5-6 minutes on, do you have a question? Okay, that's good. No, here comes Skylar. Hold on, you're good. She kind of was like this, and I was like, is that a question or is that
burning?
Stretch?
I couldn't wait. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
One, remind me what you need for the parking lot at some point. Let's connect. I might have a parking lot, so I wanted. Oh, maybe we can talk about that later.
Sure.
My name's Tamara Sabella. I'm here with Karika Park and Oakland Sport Equity Coalition. Shout out to my friends here who are golf instructors and adaptive golf instructors here, Coach Howard and Coach Jean. But I run summer camps that are golf and play. And we do a really extensive, really proud of our professional development training, sports-based youth development training that we give all of our coaches. So they get a lot of training. However, I do, particularly with autistic kiddos, it's especially you that you might be able to help me here, but other, different able-bodied people who might come for golf and beyond. Do you have any orgs, resources, places that you would recommend that I could give my coaches this training? Because I had some families ask me over the years if their kids could join with different levels of autism, and the ones on the more extreme side telling me they might need a little support, I was a little concerned. I didn't want to turn them away, but I also wasn't sure that my coaches or myself had given the coaches proper training to respond appropriately. So what would you recommend? What is the best way to bring in training for people who are doing inclusive? I appreciate the specialized, but when we want to have more inclusive, integrative programs, what can we do to provide the proper training?
Yeah, so I think you're getting it right at what I said earlier. You can't be expected to do it all yourself. You don't have all the training and expertise to be able to do it, and it's going to take additional people to do that. So it would be finding, I don't know the providers out here as well as I do obviously in Arizona, but it would be finding a behavioral provider or applied behavior analysis, and there's lots of them throughout now that could help you integrate your kids into your program. Some of them might be able to provide more didactic training, and that can be great for your coaches as well. But I think the better thing is if they can come and provide that support, kind of like what I described when I started as the one-on-one aid. Do they have people that will come in there and help work with the kids to integrate them into the program, so long as they also realize their job is to get out of the way and allow you guys to teach the golf.
Any other questions? So maybe we won't do the little roundtable breakout. We'll just answer questions and do a quick Q&A, and so that you guys have what you want to get back home and implement all this.
Thank you. My name is Claudia, and I'm here with Beyond Sport Foundation, and My question to you is, as from a perspective of a funder, I would love to know, like, what is your need? And if you were to speak to a funder that had, hey, I have $100,000, like, this is what this will get me, like, what is your response to that? And then if the sky was the limit, what is it that you would really need from funders?
Who wants? I know that's a priority for everybody. They're all going to follow you out the building.
With ours specifically, it's staff, paid staff. We're currently 100% volunteer driven, and we have a rather large program with a great, amazing capacity of volunteers. And we've gone down the route to try to get some grants in the past and just haven't passed the stress test for it because we're really good at the sports stuff and doing the stuff that we do, and we don't often ask or put it out there to the world what our organization needs. So yeah, appreciate that question.
You stole my answer. I was going to say the same thing. And BORP is very fortunate to have staff, and I think that's the reason we've been around for 49 years because I've been part of a variety of adaptive programs as a participant and kind of in a leadership role. And I've seen all different kinds of models. All volunteer models can absolutely work, and there are super passionate people who want to run these programs. The problem is those super passionate people eventually find something else to take their time, and then those programs often fold. And so, I read so many grant applications where they want to fund, they do want to fund that $10,000 power soccer chair, which is great. But if you don't have someone to meet someone when they get to the gym to help them use that chair, it's not going to nearly have that effect. So people.
Yeah, we have 50 staff and 10,000 volunteers. So, recruiting and training those volunteers, a huge need. What we're focused on right now, actually, it references back to 63 by 30, because we're here at Aspen Institute. We serve about 28,000 athletes here in Northern California, but in our strongest areas, we're pushing 10% of the number of people who receive services from the state because of an identified developmental disability. And those strongest areas are pretty much all around the Bay Area. So our focus over the next 10 years is to push out elsewhere. Fresno, the North State, that's much more rural. If we had more funding, we would push further, push faster. And it would take getting the people on the ground, getting the corporate partners that are especially focused on those areas to really make a difference in more people's lives.
So we're a nonprofit organization. My chief development officer would probably kill me for suggesting this, but I would not take the money. I would encourage you to go give it to these existing community programs and incentivize them to hire groups like us to help integrate their kids in what they're doing. I think we have to build this into the culture of what people are doing, and we can't just rely on people doing it just out of the goodness of their heart. I think if they've got the funding to do it and they can see it being successful, then we've really started to change the system and change what we're doing. And the related piece that I'd say is that we've got to share our story. So whatever we can do when we have these success cases, we need everybody knowing about that so that everybody now has the opportunity to then say, okay, well, I'm going to enroll my kid in that program, or I'm going to take my kid to this place, because we've done a great job of sharing the success stories of that as well.
And I'll piggyback on that. I've seen grants that cover equipment, they cover transportation and travel, but they don't cover personnel, which is what many of these folks up here have said. So again, you can go to a basketball tournament, but if there's no one there to open the door and turn the lights on, it doesn't help anybody. So we really do need that structure to have people in place that can organize and manage and support, because it does take a village. Yeah. Any other questions? I know we're just about out of time. Oh, okay.
Hi, Teresa Roden. I run a small organization called I Try, and we empower middle school girls through triathlon. And I'm just so grateful to be a part and listening to you all today. We're 16 years old this year, and at the beginning we were very selective of the participants. We work with the schools. In the last 4 or 5 years, we've opened it to any girl. And so that's opened us up to neurodivergent kids and more disabled kids. And as a under-resourced, because what you're hearing, it's really good for funders to hear. It's about the people, not always the stuff. We were worried that we wouldn't be able to provide what we needed, but we kind of took a leap of faith. And two things play into this really well. And it's that we trained our coaches ahead of this coming out of COVID through the Center for Healing and Justice Through Sport, which I recommend to anybody. They taught us to meet each athlete where they are, which is great for every athlete, but specifically for our ones were challenged. And it's just been such an honor to serve these kids and watch. And I am such a fan of unified sports, because bringing everybody together, and what you said, this young man who's the football star, that it made it more fun for you. I've heard from athletes that say, I forgot it was fun to play, and being parts of unified sport, you get to play again. And so thank you for that. And thank you for what you're doing and opening our eyes to anybody can play. And these are the ways to do it. So thank you.
Thank you. And everyone should have a right to play. Like Emily said, it shouldn't be a privilege. Every kid should have a right to play, and that's what my dad did many, many years ago. So thank you all. What's your challenge when you get back home? You know, look into one or two things that you can reach kids that aren't reachable. You know, I've even asked Olympic great Edwin Moses one day. I'm like, what about that kid that lives in the not so great neighborhood, English is a second language, that has spina bifida or low vision? How do we find them? How do we find them and get them involved in sport? Because we talk about the gateway to life. When you find an athlete or a participant, a kid with a disability, and you get them in sport, who knows, they might be moderating a session so many years later. But, you know, it shows them how much more there is to life. It's not therapy sessions, it's a community. I can go to graduate school, I can have a family, I can be a rock star in life. And so sport is such a gateway into so much more for life for all these kids with disabilities. And I thank all the panelists today. It's been wonderful to meet so many of you, and thank you all today. Safe travels back home, and please reach out to any of these folks. They should be on the app, and then make sure you get those kids with disabilities involved in your community and sport. Thank you so much.